Welcome. This is the third lesson in the fifth fetter, and we're going to do a sofa sit. I know that I said that we're going to talk about the bubble of reality, but we're not. We are waiting a bit. And I would like to talk about everything about the fifth fetter, which is a lot. And we have a full list of all the things we want to go through with you. So the fifth fetter is about all the things you don't want. There's something that is happening in your life and you don't want it like that. It can be small things like traffic, somebody's taking your parking lot, or it can be prices on tomatoes has gone up, or it can be big things. Mom and dad didn't love me. My partner doesn't respect me. It can be like huge things that has completely shaped your entire life. What is the common denominator for everything in the fifth fetter is that we have a reaction of ill will, aversion, anger, annoyance, irritation, resentment, envy, and then grief in a bracket. That we have that reaction. Something outside of us is happening, and we don't want that to happen because, we want something else. We had a different expectation about an outcome. We wanted something else to happen. And that is specifically what we're working with in the fifth fetter. My idea was that this sofa set is going to be the lesson. It's very, very ambitious. But this sofa set is going to be the lesson that you listen to again and again and again when you are in a situation that is not going the way you want it to go. And we also talked about you making some inquiries that can go with this. You already have some on your channel.
No, we definitely, because we've also talked about, just like we did the 3 for fetter, the fourth fetter, we've talked about doing a similar thing for the fifth. So which I still have to finish doing the fourth before I get on to do the fifth, but we're getting there. But yeah, I think something like that will be really useful to kind of break it down step by step.
Yeah. and for us to kind of like, it's difficult to sit and talk about it like this. Because it's easier when we're in a group or when we're in a one-to-one where you come to us and you have an issue. Then it's easier to kind of like show what it is that you do with this aversion or anger that you have. But what we're doing that is always the same is bringing attention to that whatever comes up in you that feels like something that let's say that you're really, really angry about. Somebody has done you wrong. And it's not something minor. It's something that's really influencing you, and you keep ruminating about it, and you wake up at night and you feel that contraction in you about it because you're so angry about it, and you're really frustrated because you don't know what to do with it. You don't know where to go with it, and just saying that it's all about you and just look on the inside and it's an inside job and all of that, it's not helping at all. I want you to think of something like that, to recall something like that is in that bracket. It's on that serious level. And right away when you think about it, you can feel that contraction happening, right? You can feel that you already in your mind are starting to argue with the person in your mind and tell us about how that person did you wrong. And you can feel that contraction happening, and there's some kind of need for us to acknowledge that that they did you wrong, that it wasn't fair what happened, that you were in your right to react like you did, because if you didn't react like that, then they would stumble over you, or you wouldn't be heard, or you wouldn't be seen, or you wouldn't be anything like that. That is the feeling I would like for you to have. And what we would like to draw your attention to is to think about that incident, or that incident. Think about what happened. Think about that person and feel what is happening in you. Now, we don't want you to be super reactive, so you are exploding, because when you're there, then you're like the other side of the gap. We always talk about there's like the pendulum swing that is going like that, and in the middle you have the middle way, and you can only see through the delusion when you're in the middle way. So if it's too reactive, the things you're thinking about, see if you can back up a bit. And then really look at what is happening in your body right now. Because what you're angry about is a diversion from something that is happening in your body. That, wouldn't you say so? That icky sensation that you have in your body is connected with something. There's a root underneath. There's a starting point underneath. And no matter which of the fifth fetter things we're talking about, it's like a cone. It's how I see it. That we think it's about aversion or ill will or resentment or envy, or we think it's one of those things that are very, very different. But all of them are it's like a cone. All of them are pointing at the same thing, and that's the starting point. And that's what we do in an inquiry.
Absolutely.
And I would like for you to, if you want to, just walk through, because I listened to, you had a one-to-one with a person where they had the issue that nobody ever hear what I'm saying. Nobody's ever paying any attention to my needs, to what I'm saying. They never acknowledge what I am, bringing to the table. They simply don't hear me. And then you did the inquiry with the person, and slowly what is happening when you do an inquiry is that you take what they're saying as truth, but looking into what is the underlying belief, how does it feel in the body, and slowly you came to another starting point, and that opened up for a new inquiry, and to another starting point that opened up to a new inquiry, and that because the starting point is then moving, then it ends up at something completely different. And it turned out that the person, the real issue behind they never hear what I'm saying, it wasn't about that at all. It was about the fear of being left alone, the fear of the people that they love would die and they would be left alone, or the people that they would become really, really good friends would leave them. Or so that was the fear, and that was then what you worked with, because that was the underlying fear. So what you will experience when we talk about the fifth fetter is that a lot of it is pointing at the starting point, which is back in the second fetter. Mm-hmm. So it's back to fear, anger, guilt, and shame. And it's back to a lot of old trauma that has never been acknowledged and never been felt. And that is what you then need to work with. But it's useful to work with the fifth fetter.
Absolutely.
To get that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I take, whenever I'm working with somebody, I start with wherever they are. And like you said, assume it to be truth, because to them, the original story point seems to be their valid experience. Mm-hmm. But we have a tendency of not noticing all of the things that have led up to that, or what's underneath it. And so by having somebody else with you to kind of help reflect what they're hearing and what the person, because we have a tendency also of talking and really revealing what is going on inside without actually hearing the words that are coming out of our mouth. Yes. So it's just helpful to have that kind of mirror to bounce off of. And so reflecting back on them, what they're actually saying and what we're hearing them say, and then having them kind of track down further and further to what's behind the most common issue that we have. There's something else that's underneath that, and often underneath that and underneath that. Yeah. And so we just tease it apart bit by bit. It's still possible to do by yourself. But
Absolutely.
I think it's easier if you have somebody else to ping pong with, whether it's in a group or a one-on-one or anything else. Yeah. But still, it's, I think for some people it's easier to be more introspective than others too. So some people might have a really easy time doing this sort of thing by themselves, and for others it's just not in their makeup for whatever reason.
So where you and I are different in the way that we work I'm very much using the bubble of reality.
Yeah.
So I'm very much about whatever you say about Janice, you hear, you know, Janice never ever listens to anybody in the office. She always interrupts. That is what you're saying. And in your bubble of reality, it's just mirrors on the inside. So you just look at the mirror. What did you just say? Janice never listens. Okay, look in the mirror and then, have it bounce back to you. I never listen to Janice, or I never listen to me. Which one of these are correct? Which ones are the ones that I feel, the most meat on? Which one are the ones that I should work with? And if it's about I am disrespectful towards Janice, look into that. Why are you disrespectful? What is it that makes Janice the prey for you? What is it that is triggering you, activating you to be disrespectful towards her and not towards Donna? So it's very much about using the mirror on the inside of the bubble of reality to really see what is reflected back at you. What is it that is calling for your attention? What is it that is not met, that needs to be met? But
well, I was just gonna say, and I think that's actually a really helpful way to do it if you're doing it by yourself, especially because that gives you the tool to be able to reflect it for yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas what I do is a bit more.
Could you talk about it?
Yeah. So I mean, basically, what's happening when I'm working with somebody is that, my thing is, no matter what, we take it to be true in this moment. And so even if I'm asking somebody, I'm sure probably talk more about this, but when we go into the uncomfortable sensations in the body, I'll ask them, if something is coming up that's a memory, or does it relate to something else? And the difference is we take it to be true in the moment, but it doesn't matter whether it is actually historically true or not.
Super important.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you have a memory of something that happened when you were 5. Historically, it could be a completely false memory, but the fact that it's coming out now and somehow connected with this discomfort means that it's relevant for you right now in the moment that you're doing the inquiry. And so then we can get something from that and find out what that's pointing to, because it's basically all a metaphor for something.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's kind of what we do is I take that on all the levels. So if somebody comes in and says that they're having a problem with their coworker, well, that's a metaphor for something else. There's something else that's pointing to. We don't have to take it literally that they really have to get a new coworker or change their job or something. Why is this a problem for you? And then now.
Yeah, exactly.
And then work our way through it, and then see what other things now are pointing are causing the discomfort that's then being deflected onto the coworker, and what's underneath that and underneath that.
I love that. I love that you call it a metaphor, because it's exactly what it is. It's also what I'm doing with the bubble of reality, with the mirrors on the inside. It's just a metaphor for whatever actually needs your attention, because there's nobody outside of you that is doing anything to you or towards you. It's how you perceive it, and that's super, super interesting. Why is this relevant right now? I mean, Janice has been Janice in all the times she's been in the office. Why is it relevant right now for you? What is it right now in you that needs your attention, where she's just, the metaphor for what is what is calling out for attention.
Exactly. And we often forget that metaphor changes over time, and that we have a new irritant today than we did yesterday, but we just think, well, maybe we're really reactive, or no, it's really this situation that's the problem, or whatever. But actually it's something underneath that we're just not looking into.
I have experienced that so many times in groups, and also in private consultations with people, where there might have been an issue, people don't respect me, let's say. The issue that people don't respect me. When I was a child, I was never respected. That is the story, and that is that is the starting point. That people do not respect me, and I want people to respect me. And then the person is going home and working with that and looking into that, and coming back next week and going like, it's completely gone. But there's another thing that is really, really on my radar. This time I was really, really angry, because this and this happened in the supermarket, and then my cart got declined, and they didn't want to get me, my groceries, and I said I could come back later, and I really got angry. I think we need to work with anger. And then when you look into it and tease it apart, it's exactly the same again. And that is what is normally happening, that we think it's a lot of different things. And it rarely is.
No,
it's more or less always the same thing. Yeah. It's just changing the face, and the situation is different. That's also why it's so important to take all the Fetter work and take it off the cushion and into real life where people are knowing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And I would say, going back to the bubble of reality thing, I also, like, that's the sort of fundamental belief underneath everything that I do. But I feel like, I like coming at that, like that informs everything, but still giving sort of credence or lip service to what is experienced at the moment, because I think it's super possible for people to just take that on as a belief and then bypass everything else.
Yeah.
So rather than just, it's like, that's like the guiding philosophy behind everything, or the guiding insight behind everything. But I think, everybody has to come to that themselves rather than just taking it on as a belief. So I think what we're doing is, from both of the different ways that we work,
it's exactly the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. It's very important what you say that. Are you comfy?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks.
It's very important what you say with not taking on another belief, and it's why I like working with the bubble of reality. That it's completely, dismissing all beliefs, because it's what is staring you in the face right now. It's the mirror. What when you look in the mirror, what do you see? And that is relevant and all the time.
Yeah.
And it's changing all the time.
Yeah, it is. And as long as we stay present and aware of what's going on, and don't, that's where another thing that we talk about a lot is our tendency to just use old Post-it notes or old labels for things, and not see the situation fresh as it really is in this moment, but to just put on all of the
it's still recording.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's so right. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
But to put on all of the old assumptions, and so you might have had one bad interaction with your coworker, but from now on, every time you see that coworker, they've been colored by that one interaction, and then every time you see them, all of those
you're reacting on the Post-it.
Exactly. It just becomes reaction upon reaction upon reaction, where that person might have done nothing beyond one time saying something to you that you took the wrong way, because it touched something in you that you weren't aware it was there, and became a triggering situation. And so,
and it's also what happened. It's funny you're saying that. It's also what is happening in Family Feuds, all the way back to Shakespeare. That there's like this thing that happened, in 75. Can't really remember what it was, but it was really not okay.
That's true.
Really, really not okay. So the family is not talking, and nobody's, Yeah. And we can't even remember what it is about anymore. It's because we are now reacting to the label, to the Post-it. We're no longer reacting to what is actually present and aware right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Go on.
I was just noticing on the screen, are we like creating little trails?
Oh yeah.
Is this why is this happening?
I don't know. Do you think it's
somebody gave the computer
it's the Christmas light?
Is it?
I think so.
Should we clean the camera lens? Is this like a or do we have like the Vaseline filter on or something?
I don't think so. I don't
so
know what
weird.
it is, but yeah, it's right. We have halos.
Weird. Speaking from the beyond. Also, while we're having a meta moment, is that like the noise from that being picked up on the camera?
I don't know. We have a Christmas tree.
We have a Christmas tree, and it's a very noisy Christmas tree.
It's a noisy Christmas tree. It's a really nice Christmas tree.
Thank you. Should I shut off the topper so it's not moving?
Can you shut off the top?
I can't. Can I shavasana? Yes. Can you shavasana?
Can you shut off the Christmas tree?
Well, do you want the lights on and the topper to
on.
Stop moving?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay. Dun 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 dun. And we're back.
And we're back.
I was thinking of going through ill will, aversion, anger, annoyance, irritation, resentment, and envy, because we tend to think that it's different things, where it's really not. But the feeling of it is different. So, should we talk about the stages?
Sure.
Of anger?
Yeah.
The first stage is where we believe, something is happening and we react.
Yeah. Are we talking the bottom stage versus the because I think in my video about it, I kind of started on the external and came
Stop
in.
there. Go there.
Well, just so when we're talking about it, a lot of times what we think of as anger is actually the outward manifestation of it. That's the you punching somebody, throwing something across the room, actually yelling, flipping off another driver or something like that. And we take that just to be the anger. But that's just the very outermost shell of what that anger manifests as. And that's really, sorry.
Yeah, no, but I just want I just want to say that it's the same thing with aversion or with irritation.
Absolutely.
With irritation, we take it like, she's saying something that is really, really annoying me, or really, really irritating, or the sound of people chewing, or people misspelling in posts on Facebook, or anything. We take it as the feeling that we come there is, and us reacting to that is the irritation.
Yeah.
That's the real deal. The envy, they have a bigger car than we do. That's the real deal. That is envy.
Yeah.
Where it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
No. And even actually, and we didn't have that on the list, but I think it's also a really pertinent one to mention, is boredom. And we talked about this the other day.
I write it down so we remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. Is it the same?
Yeah, it's absolutely the same. We have that thing about, but bring up a lot. There was that study that they did where they put people in a room by themselves with nothing but a buzzer, which they could use or a button that they could use to electrocute themselves. And like most people, men and women, after sitting in the room with no stimulation for just minutes, will start to shock themselves just to give themselves some sort of stimuli, because it's so horrible to be bored. Well, what is it that's horrible to be bored? We don't think about it most of the time, but actually it's that there's something underneath that's just uncomfortable, and that boredom, that whether it's pushing a button or flipping on the TV, scrolling on Facebook, whatever it is, it's a deflection, it's a diversion away from feeling what's going on, and that boredom is a type of aversion.
Yeah.
It's a type of discomfort in the body that you're not willing to sit with, and so we look for any sort of distraction. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a problem with just sitting and staring at a wall for 3 days. It's only if there's something there that we're really uncomfortable with that is keeping us in a loop where no, gotta go, gotta do, because if I sit down, my mind starts thinking, and if I hear the thoughts in my mind, I'm gonna go crazy. And so gotta do, and just stay busy.
And it's also I remember when I first realized that is actually a thing. It was a group I had in Denmark where there was a woman, and she came to the group, and she started the course and everything because she wanted to find out why she always had so many balls in the air, why she kept juggling, because she had realized that every time a project was finished, she would start up a new project. Every time, then it would be like, I can't remember the specifics, but it was like, so many things to do with the cats and the kids and all of that, and job and extra job and boards and all of that. And then the cat dies, and then it's like, it should be easier now because there's one less ball to juggle. Yep. So she get a kitten. Yeah. And then just throw another ball up. Then she stopped being in the board of a ball or club. What do you call that? Like in a club when you are playing.
A team?
Yeah, a team. Yeah. She stopped being a what do you call that thing? Treasurer. And it was a huge burden on her, and it took her so long time to figure out that she didn't want to be a treasurer in that club anymore. And the moment that she didn't step down for that, she entered into a PTA of her daughter's school. So it's like, and then, but when that happened, I realized, oh my God, there's something here that is, and we could talk about it, and she was like, yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. But it was exactly what you just said. That is that, discomfort with just being in silence. Something will happen on the inside.
Yeah, and for some people, it's the thoughts that seem to be a problem. That if they stop being distracted, they'll hear the voice in their head, and then that's very irritating. And for other people, it's being in the body itself. And I used to run into this a lot when I was teaching people meditation, or even just talking to people about the fact that I taught meditation, because it's like, oh, I can never do that. If I sit down and I just just feeling into the body for just a moment, and it's just terrifying. There's something in there that just no.
Yeah. So
right out of it.
Absolutely. So many people have that idea that I can't meditate.
Yeah.
I can't meditate. I can't sit still. My thoughts keep interrupting. I can't meditate.
Yeah.
So it's and that is like bouncing off on the first stage where you don't even, just stay with that. And if that's you and if that's where you're at, then it's just, stay with it. Can you be in a body? Can you be in a body where discomfort is present? Can you be in a body and just see what happens when you're just staying there, not diverting in any way, but just staying there? And then you get to the second stage when we talk about the stages of anger.
Yeah, and so coming back, we really jumped far away from that for a moment. That was like a jarring transition. I'm sorry. I was not expecting that.
I segued straight into.
So on the outside, you have what seems like this, what we take to be anger, which is the outward manifestation of it. But underneath that, there is this feeling of discomfort, this feeling of either like an irritation, a contraction, burning,
nausea,
can't
breathe, tightness in the chest,
tightness in the throat, something that comes up that we're really not aware of most of the time. And then that is coming as so the outward manifestation, the yelling, the throwing, the punching, the whatever, that is a way of not feeling that sensation that was underneath there, because whatever it is, that the externalization of it keeps you from feeling what's inside. It puts you in that more powerful position of, now I'm taking everything that I'm feeling here and externalizing it on this outside source that is the cause of all of my problems. Now you have somebody to blame. You have some way to divert not only, all of your attention so that you don't feel what you don't want to feel, but you're also diverting all of the blame and all of the well, this is something in me that's making me react this way. No, it's you that's making me react this way. So all of that is a way of diverting from just being with that feeling of discomfort that's in the body from somewhere. And we don't know where at that point. We just know that we feel uncomfortable and we don't know why.
And this is the level where, when we talk about the verbal indicators, where this is, that whenever you are blaming, shaming, complaining, or explaining, it's a diversion from exactly what Todd is talking about, the second level, where it is so uncomfortable, but you are aware that there's something on the inside that is so uncomfortable that it is actually not about me at all. It is you. If you did not do like that, I would not feel like I feel. So it's your fault. It's the blaming and complaining. The people that that non-stop complain about the weather, about the colleagues, about the neighbors, about the postal service, about Christmas, about, complaining about anything. And the moment that something is sorted out, they complain about something else. It's because it's a diversion from the inner experience. There's something on the inside that is so uncomfortable. I cannot stay with that.
And so ever present, we like to think that it's like, oh, well, the postman always leaves the mail, in the wrong place, and so I'm always pissed off at that postman. But actually, that's just because you're feeling this all the time. And the fact that mail was in the place where you didn't want it to be is just that one extra little thing that brings it out to the point where you even see that it's there, and then you feel this reaction to it. But that undercurrent of discomfort is there 24/7.
Yeah. But it's also, you also experience that sometimes you're better at managing that discomfort that is there. So the discomfort is still there, but it's easier to be in life when nobody is, cutting you off in traffic, and when there's you go to the toilet and there's still paper on the roll, and all of those small things, then life is easy to navigate. But the moment that just the smallest thing is not like you have expected it to be, then everything falls apart. And it's too much to look at at what is the underlying, experience here. What is it that is actually happening in the body? That is too much.
Absolutely.
So you're like on the verge all the time, and people are walking on eggshells around you because you just explode all the time. But still, it's just, that is not anger either.
No.
And that is not ill will and aversion and any of that either.
No, it's just irritated sensation or uncomfortable sensation in the body.
Yeah.
So
could we just take a little bracket and pull in envy in this, because it's the same thing. It's what we're talking about with that, the funnel. It's the same thing with envy, that we think that I feel envy when they have a bigger car than I do, or they have more luck, or their life always pans out the way that they want, and I'm the one struggling, I'm the one that's stuck. So you feel envious, and then you may not, on the second level, you are aware, okay, it's not about them, I'm actually fine. But then it comes up when things are not going your way, when you have an expectation about something happening or being in a certain way. Do you remember back in the first Fetter when I talked about that expectation is a sign of victimhood? That whenever you have expectations about anything, there's a hook into things panning out in a certain way, which means that the moment you expect something to be in a certain way, you are a victim, because things never ever happen the way that you want them. And in that is envy really, really well hidden. But it's the same underlying thing. There's an underlying, it's pointing at something in you that is not enough. Something, a view you have about you that is not enough. And you assume that every single good quality that you have, they also have. Plus, they have a Tesla.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is completely delusional. Everything that you have, and nobody has a backpack like you. Nobody has a past like you. Nobody is the person and see the world like you do. You're just assuming that they, have that as well. Plus, a Tesla. Right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to add something about envy?
I would say it's something that's funny because we don't really talk about it much, but I think and we would tend to normally just assume it's sort of part of Fetter 4 with, wanting something that somebody else has. But you're right that there's this other side of it where it's not just about the thing that we're envious about. It's this feeling of real profound discomfort in something not being right here. It's that I am not having, should be. That thing that I should have, that if only I had that Tesla, then I would be, but it's still, it comes to that same, and that's why we talk about 4 and 5 being so similar, because they all come to that same internal root of discomfort, of needing that thing to be, whether it's that thing that's, with 4, we talk about we need that something to make us feel better that will take away this discomfort. Or 5, we need to get rid of something that we have to take away this discomfort because I have something here that's making me feel really bad. And it's two sides of the exact same coin.
I'm really happy that you're pulling that in, because a thing that we often hear when we talk about the 4th Fetter is that, but I deserve, I deserve a good life. I deserve a glass of red wine when I come home after work. I deserve this extra brownie. I deserve, I'm not getting the full pay at my work, so I can take this pen. I can take these, this paper. I can take this from my work without, no, it's not stealing. It's not stealing. I give them my time. I'm not paid proper. I can say it's not stealing. It's not a compensation. Exactly. I deserve this. All of that is part, that greed is part of the same thread as envy. You know, the same it points exactly into the same.
Yeah, because
the greed and envy is exactly the same thing. It's pointing into exactly the same thing. I am not or should be.
exactly, and you don't need that pen, but it's pointing to the fact that if you stole the pen, it has nothing to do with the fact that you don't have enough writing utensils in your house.
I have a writing utensil issue.
It's that there's this other deficiency there. There's this other something that feels like it's missing, and something that feels like it's really irritated because you are maybe unhappy in your job, and other things below that, which are then like, well, everything that I can do to try to patch up this hole, or try to compensate for this thing,
absolutely,
no matter what it is.
Absolutely, yeah, you're exactly right. So this pen is supposed to compensate for
really giving up the best years of my life to a company that undervalues me, and the fact that I don't value myself enough to do.
I choose to work in this company that undervalues me because it's completely in line with how I value myself.
Exactly.
So now I'm taking this pen to compensate for that.
So good.
It's a solid solution.
It is. It's a really good pen.
It's a great pen. A bloody great pen.
So
yeah. Okay, so back to, thank you for that little.
Yeah.
Thanks. Was there anything about boredom that we should take in here?
Probably.
Because it's the same on this level when we talk about boredom. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing that makes you want to shock yourself.
Yeah.
That there's that underlying discomfort of just being in the body, or even being in the mind, being in whatever is in a place where there's no stimulation.
Yeah,
okay, that freaks me out every time I do that.
But I also want to say that every time you hear, when, for example, the study talked about where people, they're sitting in a room, completely white room, there's nothing in there. The only thing there is you sitting in a white room and just being with yourself, or you can shock yourself. And when we say it like that, it sounds silly that you would shock yourself. It sounds completely insane. But the next time you pick up your phone and you start to scroll on Insta, on Facebook, or next time you pick up the remote and you sit and flick on Netflix or anything like that, look at it as the same thing. Ask yourself, first of all, have the acknowledgement, okay, right now I'm shocking myself. Right now, I'm really sitting and pushing a button. I'm sitting and pushing a button. It's just as in saying there's something inside of me that I do not want to feel. And I haven't got the bandwidth right now to deal with what it is that I can't, be with.
And notice also the justifications of, oh, but I have people who are reaching out to me, or I have to email people, or I have to check in on this, or I have to write to this person. Notice that even that is causing you a feeling of discomfort that you are alleviating by going to that and checking the phone and doing all of that. So it's like nestled levels of one, that's purely an excuse to justify the going to the phone and not, just sitting with the discomfort. But then if you have in your mind also that you're doing it for this purpose, and it sounds like a logical purpose, then notice also that there's a discomfort there about not sitting with a bunch of emails on your phone that haven't been addressed yet.
Yeah, exactly.
There's still a discomfort there that you're doing something to alleviate. And something had come up when you were saying that about the boredom, and I wanted to mention something, and now I don't remember what it was.
I came to think about, I had in my groups in Denmark, when I had, sorry,
No,
I'm not going to forget.
Okay. You said that one other time, and then it was like gone before the, okay. But it's just even very, very subtle things. Like notice if when you're going about your day, if you are doing something and you're still in motion, but you find yourself having to like hum or whistle or do something else, that's another way of further distracting yourself, because there's a discomfort of just doing dishes or just grocery shopping or something. There's something there that's causing you to even divert while in action. Yes.
It was actually very much like the point that I wanted to point out. When I had my groups in Denmark, they came every other week, and it was like a full day of teaching in there. So it was like a full day retreat every other week for 6 months. It was really, really intensive. And one of the assignments that I gave them was that for a month, not be on any kind of screen. So no phones, no TV, no newspaper, no magazines or anything. That was one assignment. The other assignment was never to multitask. only to do one thing at a time. And that's exactly what you're talking about. If you're doing the dishes, you're not listening to a podcast, and you're not whistling, and you're not singing, you're washing the dishes, you're feeling the warm water on your hands, you're feeling the soap on your fingers, you're feeling the dishes or glass while you're washing it out. You feel how you put it up on, on the rack, and you feel how you dry it and when you put it back. So it's doing one thing at a time to really, really get in contact with that discomfort that we have, because all of us are in fifth fetter all the bloody time.
Absolutely.
There are things that we do not want to feel all the bloody time.
Yep.
And it's just about recognizing that is how it is, and also recognizing the version that we do for not getting contact with what it is.
Yeah.
But if there's no identification with it, if it's completely okay to have this feeling coming up, then you don't need to whistle and listen to a podcast and scroll on your phone and all of that. Then it's easier just to stay with it all the time.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah.
So the third lesson, the third,
that. So we had the external manifestations.
Yeah, the first one was the anger, where it's just throwing with a chair, yelling at people, just reacting, exploding completely, and we think that is anger. The next one is looking into that is actually,
and there's that feeling of, that was the one thing I didn't mention before. Yeah, sorry. So I jumped. I think I skipped that one. So underneath the you have the external manifestation of the anger, but underneath that you actually also have this kind of internal bubbling of what we would usually think of as anger, where I'm restraining it, I'm holding it in, I'm feeling. So you feel this internalization of the emotion. It still feels like the emotion, but you're not externalizing it in a way which feels like a win in a lot of cases. It's like, but I counted to 10, and I didn't yell. I really got angry, but I didn't yell.
I was just standing in it, and I was just breathing, and I was just staying with it, and I was
and that's that internal bubbling tension, whatever. But again, then underneath that is that feeling of more subtle discomfort, which is really, every one of those is a deflection from the one before it.
Yeah.
And underneath
Super good point. We need to repeat that. Every level is just a deflection. For something underneath.
Yeah. And so then underneath that, we have this kind of core fundamental belief that is some sort of more fundamental issue of the way that we view ourselves in the world. And so instead of it just being an issue of give me an example. The postman threw the mail, my package, in the wrong place. So
you can always use Janice.
Yeah.
Janice is so annoying.
She
is
so
really annoying.
Yeah. I've never had a lot of Janices in workplaces
in your life.
my work career. So, So you have this thing that happens externally. You have a Janice out there, and it's not that she has said something which was really true and biting, and was a really something that was really wrong. Well, yeah. Let me rephrase that.
Yes.
So Janice says that you are very slow at getting your work done, and you really have to speed it up, and you take that in such a way that it's not seen as a constructive criticism. It's seen as
your fault.
It's my fault. There's something
about you.
Yeah. There's something wrong with me. We start off, I think the first level of that is to start off and say, well, she's just a terrible boss and she doesn't know what she's talking about. I'm equally as productive as everybody else. And so we kind of deflect from all of that by even looking internally. It's all diversion. So then underneath that, we recognize that there's this discomfort from her saying that. When we heard those words, there was a discomfort in the body that we were doing all these other steps to deflect from. But underneath that, the reason why it even sparked some sort of thing is because there's something underneath there that is already being believed in.
Yes.
Which is at the core of it.
Yeah.
That we have either not recognized or that we have pushed under the cover. But that is, the starting point of where her saying that it brings us back to all the times in our life where we've been told that we're too slow or we're not good with our work or whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
And that is just pushing on that wound in a way that it causes that feeling, and then we have to deflect from it because it's just too much for us to sit with and too much for us to be with. But again, at no point in there can we really see something that's labeled as anger. There's
yeah,
or,
you're too quick. You're too quick.
Sorry.
Yeah, I would like to just stay here a bit because that is, it's really a good point. So when you then find out that it's not that Janice is telling you that you're too slow. You need to step it up. Donna is so much quicker than you. You need to step it up. It's not that is the issue. It's that you believe in what Janice is saying, and that is why you get angry at her, and that's why she needs to be wrong, because if she's right, that means that I am slow at my work. So it's the story that is believed in, and when you stay with that, and for example, I do it with the mirror and look at that, then you look at, but I am too slow compared to Donna, but and that's just a fact. You are bloody slow. Donna is much quicker. Janice is right. If that is painful to stay with, and you just sit with it, then like what Todd often does is asking into, do you remember this feeling? Where does this come from? When was another situation where you had this feeling? And it might be back to you being 5 years old and being compared to your sibling, your older sibling. Do you see how good Peter he is at eating all his peas, and you're not eating your peas? And by that you had a feel, because you didn't have the emotional maturity and the psychological maturity, and you didn't have like the understanding, you took that as mom and dad do not love me, and if I don't eat my peas, and if I'm not just as good as Pete, then I'm not a good person. They're gonna throw me out to the wolves, and I'm gonna die. It's basically how we think as children. And the problem is that trauma is growing with us. It stays the same illogical trauma, but we grow up as to adults, and we are so trying to avert situations and avoid situations where that feeling will come to the surface, where other people are going to see that we're not good enough, we are not, as good as Donna, we're not, and that is what we're trying to avoid looking at. And what we're saying is, it's just a bloody thought.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And now you can say what you want to say.
Well, no, just that what we take to be anger, aversion, envy, boredom, all of those things, they're just our very clunky external labels on all of these different levels of sensation and experience and identification. None of them actually are the thing that we think it is. There's always something underneath it that can be looked at that has nothing to do with what we what we thought. I have an anger issue. No, you probably don't.
No, you probably don't.
It's not that. It's not that you really love being angry, or that you have this thing that just is you're prone to throwing chairs across rooms.
Yeah.
There's something underneath there that is just a habitual feeling that has been resisted for so long, and it's so easily triggered because of.
And it's only because you believe it to be true.
Yeah.
You believe it to be true. You believe that you are lesser than, and that is why you get so angry. You have that feeling that Janice is right in what she's saying. Yeah. You believe the story because you have a similar story in you. And what we're pointing at, and what we're trying for you, to look at and to dissolve, is to be with the story. Be with when you were 5 and you didn't eat your peas, and Pete was so much bigger. Bigger brother was so much better than you at that. Staying with that child, going into the 7th Fetter, and just going back in time, staying with that, and just being with the sensation in your body, and let it grow and grow and grow. And let it, be, and then you detach the label of the story. So you're just sitting with the physical sensation in your body, and you don't do anything but just staying with that. And notice how the thought is trying to divert your attention from it over and over and over. And when you just keep detaching the thought all the time, and just staying with the bodily sensation, at some point, it's not an issue anymore. It will dissolve itself, because nothing stays the same ever.
Yeah. There's something there, and it's gone again. When you were saying about the oh, right, no, that's what it was. just like I had said before, again, it doesn't matter whether the situation with Pete and him eating his peas more ever happened or not. It's the fact that there still is this memory of it, this thought of it, and this association with that kind of storyline and that identification that we need to look into now.
Super, super important, because a lot of times we can't remember what it was, and it doesn't really matter. It was what I said before, with the Shakespearean, with Romeo and Juliet, they can't even remember why the two families were fighting, but they were fighting about something really, really important, but can't remember what. And it's the same thing. You don't need to remember about the peace and your big brother and all of that. You don't need the story at all. It's not relevant at all. That is only the situation that you're in now, with Janice comparing you to Donna. The feeling that you have is only pointing at something that needs your attention. So it doesn't matter if you remember the story as a child, because that was just a story too. Just like Donna and Janice is a story. It's the sensation that you have in your body, that it's pointing at something that needs space, that needs love, that needs compassion, that needs for you to stay with it, not divert from it, but just staying with it. And it's all it needs. It's all it needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is just a story anyway.
It is. But it's useful at that level to believe the story enough to actually go back and do the exercise of loving and being compassionate towards the one who had that, because there is some sort of functionality in that, without getting attached to the and that's always the risk with all of this, is that it's very easy to create that sort of identification storyline.
Yes, a new story.
Yeah.
Built on top of the story. Yeah.
So,
and it's basically what is happening in therapy.
Yeah.
That we have a sensation and a story is built about it, and then we talk about the story. And it's not dissolving anything. That's why we can stay in therapy for 20 years, because it's not allowing the embodiment of the experience. And that is what we are calling to, to really embody the experience and really, really staying with the body in what is happening right now.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you would talk a bit about Kevin and Christian's model, because if you're working with the Fetters, Kevin and Christian, Christian Mickelberger and Kevin Schanelak, that are working with the Fetters as well. And you did the 4-5. That was really, really efficient for you.
Yeah, it really worked. Because
it really
that's
worked
the way
for you.
I came in through.
Yeah. It doesn't work for me, and the reason why I want Todd to explain this, I still don't understand. So it really, really doesn't work for me at all. So could you talk about it?
Yeah. So there's a really big overlap actually at the beginning as far as how we talk about it. So with their model of it, we basically take an issue that is
let's say Janice is telling you that you need to be quicker. Donna is surpassing you and you are not meeting the quota.
Okay. So I immediately get mad about that. So I decide, okay, this is a problem that I have to deal with. This is something where I have this trigger. There's some irritant there. So, excuse me. So most of the times with their method, you take it kind of on the cushion and you sit with it and work with it a different part of the day, not necessarily in that situation. And the difference of their model versus the way that we work on it now is that it actually has nothing to do with the situation in a way. It has to do with the sensations in the body. So we're getting to the same point, but we use a sentence in their model to trigger those sensations when you're not in the moment. So if that was a triggering situation for you when Janice was criticizing my workability, I would then create a sentence to be able to stimulate that same sensation so that I can investigate it out of the situation. So I would say something, and this is the trickiest part that people have a problem with, excuse me, is you create a negative sentence. You take what you wanted to have happened, but that didn't happen. And the reason that we do that is because it softens the situation enough that you can get some sensation, but you don't blow right over the gap into reactivity. And I'll explain more about that in a minute. But basically, so in that situation, instead of Janice criticizing my abilities, I wanted her to say that you're doing a really good job or you're doing your best and I appreciate you. So I would say a sentence of, Janice didn't say that I'm doing my best and that she appreciates my work. And if in saying that it still brings up some, ooh, there's something there, now you sit with that. And the first thing to do is get acquainted with the gap. And the gap is what we call that feeling of discomfort, where you have something happens, Janice says something, you have this immediate primary sensation of this feeling in the body, and then sitting with that discomfort in that dynamic tension is sitting in the gap. On the other side of the gap is the reactivity.
Yeah.
It's when I yell at her, if I storm out of the room.
Or defend yourself, or start to go, but it was also, and she wasn't, and I was, and...
Exactly. All of those things. Storming out of the room, slamming the door, going home early from work, whatever the thing is to deflect from that. That's the other side of the
getting
gap.
migraine, getting, all of that.
Yeah, all of that stuff. So what we do to begin with is to just train ourselves to sit with that discomfort in the gap and not do anything and see how long you can do it. And maybe it'll be a second or more, maybe it'll be less than that. And then, get acquainted for what it feels like. Then what they do, which is very different from the way that you were working with it, is that you look for either a visual trigger of some sort.
Yeah.
And
I just want to say that model is not working with the trauma.
No,
and that is the main difference. That the way we work, we are very much about looking into the trauma, staying with the body with whatever trauma was there, really, acknowledging whatever is there and meeting everything with love and compassion.
Yeah.
This model does not do that. Yeah. This model is keeping it at what is present right now.
Yeah.
So there's no story, there's no label, there's no any of that in it at all.
No.
And that is a huge advantage, and it's a huge disadvantage as well. But if we just look at it from the no self point of view, and there's no trauma or anything in it at all, which I would say is not possible, but here we go. But so it's just very important to point that out, that this is not a model to use if you want to dissolve and look into the trauma and dissolve a trauma.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's it's a very good model to look at what is present right now, what is actually happening right now.
Yeah.
So sorry, go on.
That's all right. So what Kevin suggests, and this version of it didn't work for me, but it works for some people, not for others, is to find, you create basically a visual idea of what you think that trigger is that flips you over from sitting in the gap to needing to react to something. So we have the idea that, like, I have a button that just every time somebody criticizes my work stuff, they just push that button and I can't help it. I have to react. It's that sort of thing. So then we go, okay, well, if that button exists, where is it? So then sitting in the gap. So you say the sentence, Janice didn't say that she appreciates the work that I do and that I'm doing my best. Feel the sensation, sit in that discomfort, and then look in your direct experience as to, can I find a trigger, a switch, a button, a bridge, any sort of link between that physical sensation in the body and the actual reaction of whatever it is that you normally do to react. And subtly enough, that reaction can just be thoughts about something else. It doesn't even have to be an externalized reaction of blaming, defending, or anything. It can just be, I should be getting up and doing the dishes right now, or I got to make dinner, I can't bother with it. Whatever those thoughts are, those are the other side of the gap. Those are already reactions to not sitting with what's there. So we sit with the discomfort in the gap. We try to find, if we can find a trigger or a button or whatever our visual metaphor is. And if we can't find it, what does that tell you? Is there any connection between a physical sensation in the body and some external manifestation or thought storm or something else that we take to be related to that? And for some people, that's enough to just kind of break that connection and recognize that there is no reason ever to react to anything and that it just doesn't happen. What worked for me was looking for, does aversion exist? So we take aversion to be something and, okay, well, what is it? And so sitting in that gap, looking for, is there such thing as aversion here? What is that? and then recognizing that there is just sensation and there are just reactions, and that the two have absolutely no link. And doing that, it broke that reactivity component where you recognize, oh, and it comes in kind of stages. Like you can have these kind of shifts where it's just like, oh, and it kind of like really body dawns on you. And then you'll see a weakening of reactivity. So you might have somebody, Janice says again, you're still not living up to productivity, you're not doing enough. And then you might feel an initial, and then it's just like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I'll get on that, and you don't have that. And so you'll still get the initial flush. Maybe it lasts just less time. Maybe it's less intense. It gradually weakens and weakens and weakens. And like I've brought up this story before someplace. I can't remember if it was one of these or not, but I had a period during that sort of weakening period where I had been walking my friend's dog a lot, and I had this roll of the poop bags in my pocket, and when I like moved my jacket, and the bags fell down and just unrolled across the floor, and there was this initial and then it was like, what is that adding to the situation? How does that help anything? And it was just this immediate, like as soon as that frustration came, it was like, that is a completely unnecessary thing to do right now. That did not help anything. It was just, okay, and just rolled up the bags.
Yeah.
So it's in that weakening where it's just, you start to see it quicker and quicker and quicker, and then it just kind of stops happening like that.
Yeah. I just wanted to say in the break, it's one of the things I really, really love about you is that there's just not any reactivity to anything. That if something happens, that you walk with something and you drop something, or like that bag rolls out, or one of those what do you call it, cascades of things that are happening, like chain reaction of things that happen, that tips over. You just always laugh about it because it is hilarious. And when there's no expectation to the soup staying in staying in the bowl, but soup can be anywhere on the floor as well. Then there's no expectation tied into anything, and then anything is just, and then dropping soup like that or whatever it is. It's more like, an Insta reel. It's more like... I
was just going to say...
We're laughing about...
Yeah, we watch Insta videos all the time as a society, and we watch these
Americans home videos...
Yeah, America's funniest home videos.
Funniest home videos, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but like all these misadventures of people having the most ludicrous things happen, and we burst out laughing, but when it happens to us, we take it deadly seriously, and it's like, no, this is the worst thing ever. You can't laugh about that.
But it's one of the things I really love about you, that there's just not any attachment to reaction anymore. It's just not there, and you can see that whatever is happening, it is an Insta reel, as it completely.
Yeah, there's always that looking at something from the outside that this would be absolutely hilarious if I was watching
this. If this was recorded, it would be funny,
It would be so
we
funny.
Spent hours to make this soup and now it's on the floor, it's like,
yeah. So that's what we're talking about. And so for me, their method really worked on that regard. And so that's why I still use that, in part as a because I think there is a lot of functionality to that. But like you were saying, where it doesn't address is that it addresses our reactivity on the whole. It addresses our issues with, with one thing perhaps at a time too.
It also addresses the part about looking at a label and seeing, is this label real?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling anger. Does anger actually exist?
Yeah.
Does annoyance? I need to sneeze. Does annoyance? Does annoyance actually exist? Does any of that exist? And that model is really, really good at that, really because there is no such thing as anger, ill will, aversion, irritation, annoyance, envy. There's no such thing. Resentment doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Doesn't exist. Just a bloody label. And that model is really, really good at, like you said, that you really had that seeing through all of it, realizing that how is this connected at all? How is this helpful at all? How is this?
Absolutely no point to
There's
any of that.
no point in it. And it doesn't even exist.
It doesn't. And it's literally just sensation and something else happening in the world, and this connection between them that we put there, that I have to do this thing because I don't, even once we recognize that we're doing these things because there's a feeling of discomfort in the body, there's still an assumption that I'm doing it because I feel this discomfort in the body. But actually, when you look at it, there's just discomfort in the body. Like, it doesn't warrant or it doesn't make anything happen. It's not, there's no button or trigger or anything there. It just does nothing. It's just sensation in the body. But what I love about what you do with it and what I now do with it.
What we do?
What I love about what I do.
Me too. Me too, babe. Me too.
No, what I love about what we do now is that it does address the deeper traumas and the beliefs and histories that are under there, which are causing that primary sensation to begin with.
But it acknowledges that there is a recognition, that there is something, that when Janice says that, I feel that I'm 5 years old and being told off and compared to my big brother, and I'm not, as good in the world as he is. And it addresses that lack, that feeling of, the shame. It addresses that because you look at it. But it's just very important to remember that when we do that, that is a story.
Absolutely.
It is a story because Pete didn't see it like that. Your dad didn't see it like that. Yeah. Nobody else in the world saw it like that. You did.
Yeah.
And so it is just a story. But it's relevant because, 40 years later, you are on Janice's case about her saying something because of what you experienced with your dad, Pete, and the peas.
Yeah.
So it's just important to remember that it's just a story. So it's not the story that is the key moment. It's how that plays out in your life right now.
Absolutely.
How it feels in the body right now. That's relevant. And it's why also that a lot of people, they can be done with the fifth fetter and be done with all 10 fetters, and then they have to come back because the story about the peas and Pete and my dad and lesser than and the shame and all of that, it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there.
It is. And I think also, now that we're talking about it, I seem to recall, and I might be misremembering this one a bit, but like, generally speaking, when you do it like the Kevin and Christiane way, you can still have the primary sensations. That first feeling of Janice says something to me, I feel that initial dart come up, and then there's just no reaction to that. That dart can stay there. It'll probably fade out very quickly because it usually does if we don't add stories to it. But that it doesn't really address that primary dart, that first, the primary sensation. It's all to do with the reactivity to it, whereas what we do actually addresses the primary because that's what's coming from this old trauma or this old way of thinking or belief. Yeah. Otherwise, Janice could say that, that my productivity isn't great, and I'd be like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
There doesn't
it's
have
just
to
an opinion.
Yeah, for some people, it would trigger a really strong primary sensation. For others, it would mean nothing. So it has nothing to do with what she says, how she says it, or anything else. It has entirely to do with the person who is receiving those words and, as you said, believing them.
Yeah.
Whether
as
they're
if
consciously,
it's true. Yeah.
whether they're consciously even believing it or not. There's subconsciously, there's something there that believes that to be true and is clenching up against it.
Yeah.
So I think what we do is to get in underneath that primary sensation too, so that even that gets cut out.
Yeah. So it's two very different ways of working, and both ways are equally good and equally
really good.
Useful. Yeah. It's just different fingers pointing at the same moon.
Exactly. Yeah. I think they're useful in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, and it's also for different things you can use it for.
Yeah, it's really good. Like, theirs is really good if you're in a really quick flare-up situation and you want to use that situation. It can be really helpful. Also, doing what they do with the fourth fetter stuff is also useful. The same sort of inquiry, just looking into, do you have to have this thing that you're craving? So same exact process, but super helpful.
So I would also like to talk about the bubble of reality, because we're both working with that now, and there will be the lesson after this one will be about the bubble of reality. But I just want to talk very short about it. And it was like I said earlier, that when we talk about the fifth fetter and about the bubble of reality, it's very much about seeing that everything you have, like ill will and aversion and anger and all of that you have about out there, it's not about out there. It's the three fingers pointing at you. It's about yourself. So whatever you are reacting to, it's just a diversion for whatever is going on in you. And it's like that with everything. And then we could just close shop, actually.
Yeah.
If you know that, then it's like, great, have a great life.
Yeah.
That's it. I feel, though, we need to say a bit more about it.
I think we should. Well, and that's the thing, is that I feel always conflicted about it, because I feel like it's the sort of thing that it's helpful to point to, but again, I'm worried that people take things on as a belief, and that it's not. It's one of those things that only is transformative when you fully see it for yourself and really understand it.
Because it can be a huge bypassing.
Exactly.
It could be a huge bypassing. You can use the knowledge of the bubble of reality, first of all, part one, to stay on the one side of the gap where it's, everything is about you, and you are such a bad person, and you are, you shouldn't be allowed to breathe, because everything, all the horrible things you think about other people is about yourself. So it's only about you, and you're just the worst person on the planet. Or a bypassing on the other side of the gap, where it's just like, well, there's no me, so there's no issue whatsoever.
Yeah, and it's really easy to not look into any of this if you just take that on. What's the incentive to actually do any of the inquiry? You just take it on as, okay, so this is it, everything I see is a reflection of me. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm done. And it's the same sort of thing of, okay, there's no aversion, so it doesn't matter what I say or do, because it doesn't really exist. And it's
or like what we heard a lot of people that they say, well, I have a reaction, I throw a chair through the room, but I'm not angry afterwards, so it's fine. It's fine. It's just a reaction, and 2 seconds later, it's not a reaction anymore. But what we keep saying as a mantra is that, if there's a reaction, you need more reflection. You really need to look into what it is. And the bubble of reality is a tool for you to become aware of what this is actually about. So it's about really following the breadcrumbs that is in the bubble of reality, really realizing that all of them leads back to a starting point. That starting point needs to be looked into, so you can create a new starting point that is beneficial for you, and that is without all the baggage in that bullshit backpack that you're carrying around, letting go of that backpack and create a new starting point for yourself.
I feel like there was more that I was going to say about it, but I'm it's like I'm not sure how much to because I'm reluctant to go too much into it. I don't know. I think it's just that, like, I think it's really useful for people to be pointed to the fact that we can turn everything back on, everything that we see here, and whether it's positive or negative, whether it's, the things that we love about another person, recognizing that the other person is not the way we think they are, that as good as it is, they are very different from how we perceive them, and how much love they have for us. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it can be really, for some people, that can be really sort of destabilizing and feel very isolating, and like you don't know what to trust, and you don't,
and
you're
also
all alone.
Exactly.
No
You're all alone, because you realize that you're never in real contact with other people. You're only seeing a reflection of yourself in the other person, which is super useful when we're working with the higher fetters. It's really useful, and I do see how that can be super destabilizing, because it's really like I look at you and go like, oh, I love myself so much. But it is, isn't it?
It really is.
It really is.
It truly is.
That all the qualities I see in you is something I recognize in me. And it's also why you have heard, like, forever and ever and ever, if you don't love yourself, you can't find somebody who really loves you. And it's actually, it's about
really
that. It's about that. That if
No.
If you don't love you, you can't recognize when somebody loves you because you don't believe it. Well, why would you love me? I mean, I don't even love me. Why would you love me?
And if we're going down that road, I also
Let's
even
go
have
down
to
that road.
I even have to bring up the fact that nobody can stimulate in you or give you an emotion that you don't have.
Yes.
So
yes.
if you're gonna when you feel that love from somebody else, you're feeling that love from yourself. It's a self-generated emotion.
Yes.
If you didn't have the neurochemicals and the hormones to be able to create this thing that we call love, you wouldn't feel it no matter how much this other person is adoring you and hugging you and giving you
telling
all,
you,
telling you,
I'm here for you. Yeah.
If you can't physically feel it, you can't physically feel it. They can't give that to you. It's something that you produce in a certain situation with somebody else, and vice versa. So if we're looking for that love from somebody else, if you can't have that love for yourself first, you won't experience it. You just can't do that.
It's also the same when we talk about empathy, that some people are really, really good empathically towards other people, and they can really, really feel the other person's pain. And when they're crying, they start to cry as well because they can really feel it. But the thing is, you're not feeling their pain; you're feeling your pain.
Exactly.
You have accepted, acknowledged, accepted, understood that part of you that has that pain, and you're completely okay with it. And that's why when you see that, you recognize your pain in the other person. It's not their pain, it's your pain. And that is empathy. Empathy is that you feel you.
Exactly.
You know? And it's the same with love. Love is that you feel you. And the same with anger. You feel you. Annoyance, greed, envy, resentment. You feel you. You do not feel what any other person is doing towards you because it's not possible. No. It's not possible. It's only your perception of them, of what you project into them, that they outlive and mirror back to you as a pointer to what you need to be aware of in your life.
Absolutely. And even just the most benign things. I mean, we talk about the more grandiose emotions of love and this sort of thing, but even just the smallest things in terms of you saying to me, I like the way you made the oats today.
Yeah, I did.
You did. But depending on what I had in me with that filter, I'm going to hear those words completely differently than somebody else would in a different situation. So it doesn't matter what it is that's even coming in.
Yeah.
It's just it's my all of my history and relationship with you, with oats, with cooking, with everything else,
with other people,
it's all brought in that thing. So every single thing that we experience is filtered completely by.
And it's also why there's so many things like, oh my goodness, I've heard this so many times in my groups that the men in the group have said, I do not know how to pay a compliment to my wife, because if I say I really like you in those jeans, she's gonna say, so you mean you don't like me in the other jeans? It's what she is. So she doesn't love her in any jeans. So when he says, oh my god, your bum in those jeans is amazing, she cannot believe it because she hates her bum. So and that's the point. You cannot receive a compliment if you do not recognize where the compliment is going. If somebody is saying something to you that is complimenting you, you can't receive it. And also the other way around, if somebody is criticizing you and it's you don't recognize it at all, Janice come and say to you, you need to be more efficient at work. Donna is so much better than you. If you know in you that there's no comparison with any person at all, and Janice is just talking about Janice, and she has the corporate that is looking down on her, and she feels under pressure, and she's going through a divorce and all of that, you can just go like, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I will look into it. And have compassion for Janice. Absolutely. Because she's not talking about you. Yeah, but you need to have that bandwidth in you to be able to hear what it is that the person actually is saying. And that is coming to the last point I would like to talk about. And it is that we've talked about how all this is influencing you when other people say something and you get angry, or you get envious, or you get resentful, or ill will, aversion, any of that you feel. That we talked about how you deal with that in you. The next level, and this is obviously for the ones of you that are guiding, or it's for the ones of you that have been through the fifth fetter in one time and now you're here again. And that is practicing to hear the other person. So you know now it's not about you. You know now that whenever I feel anger in me, it's not about Janice, it's about me, right? It's also like that if we turn it around. So when Janice is saying something, when she's so angry at you and she's so yelling at you and she's, spewing out all the worst things on the planet, you know it's not about you. We don't need to talk about that anymore. No. Let's have some compassion for Janice. Yeah. Because the world that she's in, the world the mirrors that she's looking at, we can have compassion for. Yeah. We can have compassion for her reality to be in a way. And there we have, political parties that are not the way that you see them. We have, all the things in the media that we can get really, really angry about. Wars are happening right now where we can be super opinionated about how the war should be managed and how they should be. If you step out of your own self-importance and look at what is actually going on, and then you see that everybody out there are just talking to their own mirror, can you see how easy it is to have compassion towards that? How easy it is to feel love and show them kindness if that is their reality. So somebody is honking their horn and going in front of you in traffic to show what a twat you are, and they're flipping you off. Can you send love and really, really wish for them to get home safely? When they're driving like that, the probability is they're not. Could you wish that they're really getting home safely? And that's the last part of the fifth fetter that's really, really important to talk about before we move on, before we start to talk about the sixth fetter. It's that really turning it around and be full of compassion and love and kindness towards others.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah.
You have a spotlight on you with the sun reflection.
Yeah, there was a moment there where the sun was incredibly intense and you were just kind of a silhouette because there was so much light coming in here. You were just like this black silhouette with this really shiny corona. Yeah. that was amazing.
So that was the last thing I had on the list that I wanted to talk about. Is there anything you would like to add?
I feel like we covered a lot. I think it's just really looking into things without taking any of our labels for granted. It all comes back to that. Instead of getting caught up on the idea that we are really aversive or we're having these I get angry all the time, or I'm a very envious person, or whatever it is, looking at the base reality of that's not really the base reality, but look at the physical reality that's underneath that. What is being deflected from? Where is that coming from? And then, if we can, using one of the methods to go below that to even see. But it's really just not identifying with any of this. And that's one of the things that we've kind of talked about, but we haven't really gotten talked about a lot, is that, like with Kevin and Christiane, they make the kind of good suggestion that even if you've seen through self, that when you're working with 4 and 5, you should basically pretend that the self is back, pretend that it's still there, so that you can make some, it's very easy to use that as a tool to bypass, just like the bubble of reality. It's easy to go, well, I know there's no self, so I know there's nothing to, there's no reason for me to get angry because there's no self, and there's nobody there and there's nobody here, and it's all fine. And then I go off and, still flip people off in traffic. So it's like, you have to believe again that there's a self if it gets you to be able to work with this stuff, to be able to see through it. And then, right?
I just want to say to that part as well, that very, very often when you are in the 4th and the 5th, you have experienced that so many times with the groups that you have. a lot of times when we are working with the fourth and the fifth, it's not really 4 or 5 issues that we're working with. It's very, very much the foundational fetters is very much about identification with thought, identification with feeling or emotion, and all the things we do to avoid getting in contact with it. And it is like that from now on. Every single fetter we talk about that you have issue with from now on, from after you pass the first 3, is very much, if you have an issue and you have an issue with that, with identification, it's one of the 3, and you're getting back to working with that again. There's another layer that you need to peel off to look at which issue it is.
And there is, as we talk about when we've been talking recently about the wheel of identification, for instance.
Let's talk about that.
That every step on the path is still a form of more and more subtle identification. Yeah. And so in 4 and 5, if you're feeling that I am angry about something, you are still implying that there's a me who is angry at somebody else about a certain situation that involves you and your past history and how it's going to affect you, and it could be different. Everything about that has selfing built into it.
Yeah.
So it's all fine and dandy to say that I've seen through self, I don't feel any identification anymore, and yet it still pisses me off so much when I get yelled at work, and then you go into this tirade about it.
Yeah.
Of course, that's still clearly
There's still
selfing.
identification.
It's still so much identification.
If you have an issue with how people are politicians, or people are, not picking up after the dog, or misspelling on Facebook, or if you have any issues like that, you're selfing.
Yeah.
You're selfing.
And just being honest about it. And that's why, again,
it's one of the reasons why we created the wheel of identification. Instead of talking about the fetters as a linear process and in a ladder that you work through one and then you graduate to the next level and to the next level. Yeah. Instead of talking it like that, we talk about the wheel of identification, where it's just looking at where am I right now. I'm so angry. That's a 5. Because I am back in the second one. So it's like looking at it like that there's something that is happening, and very often, like we talked about, I think it was last night, we talked about that very often that unteasing process that it is when we feel something, it's touching into all 10 fetters. All 10 fetters are always present. Absolutely. in some way, and it's just when you catch yourself being in one of the fetters, then use the tools that you have in that fetter. And if it turns out to be in that fetter, go to that fetter. Yeah. Work with the tools in that fetter, and then might turns out to be in this fetter, and then go with it and tease it out there. Because very often all 10 fetters are present all the time.
Yeah, and that was something I had said when we were talking earlier today, is I think it's so important to... I don't want to use the word devalue, but it's kind of there.
I love it. Devalue.
So
let's say devalue.
We have this idea that the first fetter is really this low core gross fetter, and then as we go up, they're lighter and they're better.
Become more and more enlightened.
More and more enlightened, and they're better fetters. And so, 8 is just so much better than 1. And when I'm there, I'm in a better place, and I have succeeded. And again,
so
freaking selfing. There's so much selfing in all of it.
I'm so much closer to become aware, and I'm awake now because I'm working with the 8, so I'm so much closer.
Exactly.
Bloody bag and number 1.
Completely, but it's like, we have this idea that the higher it is, the higher number, the better the better you are, the more advanced you are, the more insight you've had, and so it's better to be in an 8 than it is in a 1. It's better to be in a 9 than it is in a 3. And so we have that idea built into it. But what we really want to do is to devalue it down to no. They're all just manifestations of experience.
Everything is identification. It's all identification. It's just different ways of identifying. That's it. And they're, as you said, we can bounce back and forth between them in different ways all the time. And instead of being locked into, here is a me who is now clicked into, okay, I am solidly in Fetter 5 now, and this is where I am. And maybe I have glimpses of 6, but I am locked in here now. No, you're constantly bouncing back and forth, and it's not better to be in 6 than it is in 5, or better to be in 8 than it is in 2. No, I've experienced a lot of people that are rushing into 4, 5, and then they just stay here because they're kicking the can. You know, instead of working it where it's needed to work with, and using the tools from the first or the second or the third, instead of just staying there. And you actually had one in a private consultation where they are following, they haven't worked with anything other than the awakening curriculum.
Yeah.
And they said that, well, right now all the material for the number 4, it's out now, the 4th fetter is out now. I'm not watching that. I'm not ready yet. There's still more work for me to work with in the first 3 fetters, so I'm not moving on with the 4th until I really, really understand this. And that was actually what initiated the thought that the talk that we had about creating the wheel of identification, because it was so beautiful that they just completely understood that it's about identification. It's not a race, and it's not about, reaching a higher fetter as soon as possible. It's about working with the identification where it's at.
Which you had mentioned earlier. You wanted to talk about the body yes, body no. I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah. It's one of the things that makes it easier for you to work with the. Thank you very much for reminding me. To work with the bubble of reality. It's having that body yes, body no, because it's a very good tool not to bypass. And when you have a feeling of a body no, that no, I don't want to look at this, I don't want to look at this, then it's the question, can I be in a body where no, I can't. Okay. Can you stay with the resistance to the resistance? Can you just stay with that where you're at right now? Yes, I can stay with the resistance to the resistance. So it's a great, becoming aware of the body yes, body no. It's a really, really good tool in not bypassing.
Can you describe a little bit for people, because there's a lot of question a lot of times of what a body yes feels like, or what a body no feels like, and how to identify it?
Yeah, a body yes, a body no is it's about boundaries. It's about and if you don't have strong boundaries and you've never been taught about your boundaries, you might have a wonderful, delicious yes, and you have a resistant yes. There's not a clear no. And so it's important to work with what really feels expansive and wonderful. And when you feel a contraction, allow that contraction to be there, and speak with your guide about it. Because working with boundaries in the way that you do things that you want to do and you don't do things that you don't want to do, it's a huge thing. If we haven't been taught as children how to say no to things, but to say yes reluctantly, then we are surpassing our boundaries, and we have a tendency to react as the passive aggressive bully, because we do not believe that we have the right to say no. So therefore we are manipulating other people not to do the things that we don't want them to do. We're not saying it directly. So if you have an issue with boundaries, the body yes, body no is difficult. It's really, really difficult. And that would be what I would recommend you to work with. So a body yes is when it's expansive. It's when it feels wonderful and you just feel, oh, yes, I really want to do that. I really, really want to do that. And a body no is when you can feel your entire body going like contracting, and you start to get pain in the body. You can get a headache. You feel tired and exhausted. You feel like everything is just shutting down. That's a body no. And you might now sit and think, but hang on, that's me every single Monday morning. That's me driving to work. That's me, and I have the body yes when it's Friday afternoon and I'm on my way home from work. Does that mean that my work is, I should quit my job? Not necessarily, but there are factors in play that are not allowing you to say no and forcing you to say a reluctant yes to things, which is a no, and that needs to be looked into.
That's great.
Yeah. In my groups in Denmark, I always had the rule on the first day telling them not to make any big changes in their lives, because that is part of the diversion. So no divorces, no changing your jobs, not moving the house, not starting to renovate the house, not buying a new car, not, any of those things, because it's part of the diversion that we do. And it's a bit the same here, that stay with that feeling in you instead of diverting with something else, and speak with your guide. Speak with your guide. I think that was it. The last thing I just want to say is the part about that we recommend people to become guides once they have worked with the fifth fetter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason why we recommend it is that you can only work this far on your own. The next level for you to get deeper insights, it's when you start to teach, and it's it's such a good way. Could you talk about how it was for you, because you came from LU? You didn't want to guide at all. You started in Vince's meetings, and then you started to dip your toes. Could you talk about that? I love that story.
So when I went through with LU, Vince has always been a big proponent of like when you get out, like immediately start guiding.
I'm absolutely with him on that.
Yeah, and I am too now. At the time, I was less so because it was involving, So there was an interest, and I basically gave it lip service. Like I said, yeah, I want to guide eventually. It's just not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I'll know when I'm ready.
Yeah.
And there was that kind of feeling about it, and there were these at that point, before Vince actually started his meeting, there were these monthly groups for people who had gone through LU, and it was just for people who had gone through. And so I would go to those, and it felt very weird at that point. Like I would give like little guidings to people or little things, but it felt very overwhelming being in this group of other people who had been there for years, and then here I am talking in front of and trying to point out, and there's like that feeling of uncertainty when you first come through and stuff of there's that kind of intimidation. And then as I was going through, basically it took about 5 months, I think 4 or 5 months before I actually started guiding through LU, because by then I had started work. I think Vince had started his meeting at that point. And so I was getting a little bit more confidence of talking with people in the meetings, and then getting up that sense of, okay, this is, this feels good. This feels better. And then doing the working through LU, I decided I would, start taking on one person. So then I took on one person.
And you did it with another guide, right?
Well, you have a mentor. Do you mean the mentor, or what do you mean?
No, I mean that in your LU, it's a great system that when you go through LU, when you have seen through self, Fetter one, you've seen through self, then you get is it 3 people that needs to say that you have passed the gate? Yeah. So 3 people are saying that you have passed the gate, and then you start to be able to guide through LU, and I warmly recommend you to do that. You will then have a mentor in LU as well. And you can guide with another guide, so you're not the only one guiding one person.
Yeah, I didn't do that though. No, that's kind of rare. You get a mentor, but you usually do it on your own. There are situations where you could do that, but that wasn't what I did. No, that was way after. That was with 4 and 5.
Okay.
So no, that was when after I had worked with Christiana, then I was starting to do 4 and 5, and I had 1 or 2 people on my own for 4 and 5, and then she wanted to start co-guiding.
But we're getting it. Yeah, sorry.
No,
I'm
interrupting. Just clarifying the story.
Sorry.
So
you're sitting at Vince's meeting.
Sitting at Vince's meeting, and doing these like just short, brief guidings with people. There were some times when I was doing that I would get this feeling of being like really clarified, like really like in the zone of talking to them, and like it was really clear that I'm not thinking about any of the stuff that's coming out of my mouth. There's this real immediate flow coming out, and that was very eye-opening.
Yeah.
And it took out that feeling of being that self-consciousness and that kind of fear of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. There's this kind of recognition that it's this automatic process that's happening, and it sort of took away that one more chip of the identification, one more piece of the identification pie. And then what I have found, just to kind of wrap it up quickly, is that in guiding people through LU, in going to Vince's meetings and doing longer in-person things, then doing more in-person things and one-on-one sessions, all of that, it has really helped to clarify everything that I had seen, further clarify it down. All of the insights kind of come faster because there's, I can't remember where I've mentioned it in the past, where it was on one of these or someplace, but they always say, if you want to learn something, teach it.
Yeah.
And so
I absolutely support. Yeah, I'm absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you are teaching, you need to reformulate what it is you're actually experiencing, because you might experience something, but you just live with it. And as we know, you're updated. Your body is updating all the time, which means that you kind of forget where you're at. I'm really bad at guiding in 4-5 because I cannot bloody remember how it is anymore, and I haven't updated myself. I haven't been teaching. I haven't been teaching it, so I haven't got a vocabulary to teach how to do it.
Yeah.
Well, you're really good at it because it's still very clear.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like I was going to say, the same thing with teaching guitar. Having played guitar for so many years, you forget how you do stuff. But when you're teaching it, you have to go, okay, you see somebody who has, their hand, you look at somebody and you go, okay, their hand is in the wrong position, but I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know what it is that I'm seeing that's making it. So then you have to like imitate. Okay, and it should. Okay, now I get it, and then you can like reformulate how to get that person's hand to look the way that my hand looks, so that it's in the proper position.
Exactly.
And basically, what we're doing is exactly that. It's going, okay, where are they now? How are they kind of lost in the woods there? And then how can we point them to finding the way back out? And so that's where guiding, as you said, makes it so we're constantly investigating what it's like to be them, and that's where empathy really comes in.
Yeah.
Because it's that idea of taking in what we hear, and then like what I'm doing, I'm always putting myself in their position of how are they feeling, what are they describing. That's why I close my eyes a lot of times when we're doing stuff, because I'm really trying to feel into what it could be like to be them, and then how.
And then you have a question. Then you have a question to it, and that is where it is all. And then you're gonna realize that this strange thing happened, that whatever is your issue is what people come to you for.
Yeah.
It's so weird. That whatever you're dealing with, if you have issue about money or about intimacy or about Janice or whatever, the people that you will start to guide are people that have issues with money or intimacy or Janices in their lives.
Completely.
And it's so magnificent to experience that everything you sit and say is super useful for you.
Coming right back at you.
So useful for you. And that is why we recommend you guiding.
Yeah.
That when you're done with the fifth fetter, or when you feel ready, obviously, go to Vince's meetings and start to chip in with guiding. And when you feel ready for it, start to guide. Because it's making it so clear for you what it is you need to look at. And this is taking you from the cave or from the cushion and into real life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, what you just said, there's an interesting little nugget there, is that when you're saying to somebody about money issues, even if you have money issues yourself, the words that come out of your mouth are so much wiser than you behave normally.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's this inner wisdom that we just don't operate out of, and it's one more reinforcing of the fact that there is this knowledge of how to live and what to do and the best ways to.
And it only happens when we get out of our own way. That when I believe that I know and I am and all of that, so the selfing is there. When that is out of the way and you're just speaking from that flow space that you get into, that is where wisdom really is.
Yeah.
And that is not present until you start to guide.
Yeah. It helps so much, and it really, I don't want to say speeds along the process, but it really enhances
it deepens the process a lot. It really does.
It does.
The last thing, and then we have to stop because this has been really long. The last thing is, you know that there's Vince's meeting on Sundays. He has a Saturday and Sunday. I can't remember. It's Australia, so it's different. Yeah. I think it's Sundays in our time. I'm not sure. Write to Vince. His email is in the comment or in the description below. So there's meetings with Vince, which is for the foundational fetters. And then there's a closed Fetter group, Fetter free group that is on Saturdays. That is only for people that are past 4 and 5.
No, first. Who are working with 4 and 5.
Who are working with 4 and 5. And for that, you write to Todd, and he can let you into that group, and that's on Saturdays. But it's only for people that are working with 4 and 5. Yeah. So if you're still working with the foundational, or if you want to become a guide, it's definitely Vince's group to go to. And then I have the Q&A, as you know. Become a member, and then you get the link for the Q&A every other Friday. We have the inquiry group every other Tuesday. And that's Todd you write to, and he will give you access to that. And you still have some availability for one-to-ones if you want to work with Todd. I write a link for his calendar, and then you just book and get a link, a Zoom link, and then you have the one-to-one. And I think that was it.
That was good. That was a lot. Good summary though at the end.
Yeah.
That's very fast.
Okay, I think that was it.
I think that was good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. To record. We're not starting yet. Okay, so I make a list of all the things I want us to talk about. I would like to talk about all the 5 fetters, and that is about disassociation. That there's that diversion that we do with the 5th fetter. I want to talk about, and I don't know if we're going to do this specifically, or if because it's more or less the same thing for all of them, but ill will, aversion, anger, annoyance, irritation, resentment, envy, and grief. And then I was thinking if we could talk about the stages of anger that you have in your video in the inquiry.
Sure, if I can remember them.
I can.
Thank you.
Just 3 of them, because we can do the 4th stage when we talk about the 6th fetter. And I was thinking that these stages of anger is the same with all of them. And that made me think about that cone thing that, it feels like it's about ill will or anger or grief or envy, but all of it comes into the same thing about the starting point. That it's the starting point that needs the focus. And then I wanted to talk about, remember the client you had that had the issue about nobody sees me, and then it was about something completely else when you did. Then I would like for you to talk about Kevin and Christian's model.
Sure.
Because I don't really do that. Talk about the bubble of reality, that's what we are doing. And then really focus that it's only a diversion. And then also talk about the wheel of identification, and the 5th fetter.
What did we talk about today about the wheel of identification that we said we need to bring up it's the valuing of the different levels. So not valuing the different, that no level is actually of a better or greater worse value. And then there was it was about it's about that in the previous videos I talked about that don't move any further until this has been understood. But with the wheel, it's actually dissolving that hurdle that you have, because the hurdle is not there anymore. Right. And recognizing that only in terms of not being so eager to bypass where you are, that you can stay there for as long as you need to stay and work with whatever's there.
Exactly. And also draw in the knowledge from the other fetters in the work that you're working with the fifth. Okay.
Right. I think so.
Leave it here. Off we go.
Off we go.
Welcome.